I'm here to tell you that critical anime theory is indeed a thing. We should think about anime as a form of contemporary art and talk about the ideas that it represents, because it's had an impact on the minds of people worldwide. According to a market survey by anime streaming service Crunchyroll, only 6% of Gen Z don't know what anime is, meaning 94% do, compared to 27% of the general population. So that means on the low end, that roughly 70% of their Western-based sample population is aware of anime, and that segment's only growing. Takashi Murakami's Superflat theory is a good place to start to understand what anime is and why it's like this. Through a series of art exhibitions, publications, and his own artistic career, Murakami has tried to equip us with a way of understanding what we're seeing. I want to take you on a brief tour of ideas presented in Murakami's book Little Boy, The Arts of Japan's Exploding Subculture. But this text has a lot to say, so think of this video as more of a general overview of Superflat. We'll probably also revisit more ideas from this book in future videos. But before we do all that, we've got to talk a little about the artist himself, Takashi Murakami. He was born on February 1st, 1962 in Tokyo. He's a successful contemporary artist who makes paintings, sculptures, movies, and collectibles. He's done high-profile brand collaborations for a few decades, and he's even worked with Kanye West. He's written many books and has had many books written about him. And he's the founder of Kai Kai Kiki Co. Limited, a gallery and working studio. The whole Superflat thing started out when Takashi Murakami asked that one simple question that all artists eventually do. What is art? He quickly made the question more specific. What is the meaning of art in Japan? Murakami strove to answer this question by writing essays, making artworks, and curating collections of Japanese art. The end result was his ideas presented as a trilogy of 3 exhibitions: Superflat in 2000, Coleridge in 2002, and Little Boy in 2005, as well as their accompanying publications. This all came about because Murakami noticed when American gallerists tried to sell his paintings to prospective buyers that they'd sell them with a pitch sort of like this.
How about this painting? It's super flat, super high quality, and super clean.
Murakami writes,
The words superflat denote a flattened surface, the working environment of computer graphics, flat panel monitors, or the forceful integration of data into an image. The flat reality when pop fizzles, a flattened, self-mocking culture. Japan lost the war, World War II, and came this far, though not on its own, with economic growth haunted by a tortured past. I needed to look at what was flat, and why it had to be super.
When artists and viewers were first trying to understand the aesthetics of anime, or in plain terms, what anime actually looks like, many people compared it to pop art. Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, and the rest of these people. This assessment isn't bad because there are some similarities in terms of color and approach. However, pop art speaks a lot about American society, celebrity, and consumer culture. As Murakami observed,
the cultural style developed by America, the victor of World War II, doesn't seem to fit the loser.
He couldn't fully embrace the pop art distinction, wanting instead to be able to define Japanese art on Japanese terms, so he turned to Japan's history for his answers. He studied Japanese art practices past and present, and thought about the types of artworks that were made: paintings, woodblock prints, music, fashion, anime, film, manga, and so on. He also examined the events that shaped Japan as a nation, and of course 2 dates immediately came to mind: August 6th and 9th, 1945. The two atomic bombs that were dropped on Japan during World War II, Fat Man and Little Boy, changed Japan and even what it meant to be Japanese. These two bombs impacted the health and psyche of the nation, marking a fundamental shift in their way of life and thought. An important thing to note is that this stuff isn't all just in the past. Japan's nuclear entanglement is still ongoing. Just think of the Fukushima disaster in 2011, for example. So due to nuclear weaponry, the United States won and Japan lost. It was a defeat that was hard for the country to take because, as Murakami points out, Japan was in a position where they were simultaneously victimizer and victimized. Their military might caused countless wars and occupations, but their defeat in World War II was brutal, and the subsequent American occupation was demoralizing. The switch from strong to weak occurred at a breakneck speed, leaving the population feeling small and vulnerable. Over the following decades, they collectively retreated into the comfort of childishness and cuteness. From Murakami's essay Tokyo Pop in 1999,
Post-war Japan was given life and nurtured by America. We were shown that the true meaning of life is meaninglessness, and were taught to live without thought. Our society and hierarchies were dismantled. We are forced into a system that did not produce adults. The collapse of the bubble economy was the predetermined outcome of a poker game that only America could win. Father America is now beginning to withdraw, and its child, Japan, is beginning to develop on its own.
So Japan was known for making art like this, and now, in recent post-war decades, it makes art like this. According to Murakami's interviews with otaku, hardcore anime fans,
大丈夫です。僕毎日髪洗ってますから。僕たちはデジコちゃんのファンです。デジコちゃんをいじめるな。いじめるなら僕らを。
anime itself has changed over the decades. Otaku have noticed a shift from many forward-looking science fiction anime titles to anime being more about desire and wish fulfillment. Hope for the future has been increasingly replaced with, we'll call it shallow self-gratification. Without direction or a certain future, art withdraws from meaning and becomes flat. In summary, anime looks the way it does because of Japan's economic, cultural, and personal scars. It's a reflection of the people that made it. Murakami outlines 3 specific reasons why anime looks the way it does. It represents a value system based on an infantile sensibility, a society without any definitive standard of wealth, and amateurism. In a global setting, the West sets the standards for what's considered important art, also referred to as high art. High art is the stuff that ends up in galleries, fetches high prices and praise, and has books written about it. Japan, by contrast, is thought to produce low art, or less important amateur art. Low art isn't the stuff that ends up in galleries or sells for millions, but it tends to be more popular. The Superflat manifesto does not make the righteous claim that the Japanese can produce high art just like the Westerners. Instead, Murakami aimed to change the value system entirely, proclaiming,
"The time has come to take pride in our art, which is a kind of subculture, ridiculed and deemed monstrous by those in the Western art world."
With this historical knowledge and approach, the artist made his case for putting anime in elite Western-operated art institutions. He continues to sell plushies, figures, and other fan-oriented goods for high art prices. Murakami identified flatness on multiple levels. Flattening, in Murakami's definition, meant not only the flatness of the pictorial composition, but also of the flattening of the divisions between high and low art, between genres of art, and between art and consumer culture that he argued was characteristic of Japanese culture. He's shown us that anime is an art form, and it should be embraced for all of its successes and shortcomings. Sure, it can be infantile and empty, but paradoxically, it presents deep existential concerns and emotions. The art of a subculture has come to represent the culture of an entire nation. Murakami invokes the End of Evangelion as a teaching moment. Shinji is at the crossroads of 2 conflicting desires. He wants to be connected to everyone and have no individual identity, but he also wants to be completely independent and love for who he is as an individual, which comes at the cost of separation from others. And that means he can never truly know anyone else. He's too scared to commit to either option at first, and through his inaction, he almost dissolves the boundaries between himself and everyone else in the world. This flattening of everyone in the world into a single entity is overwhelming, and he rejects it, opting instead for independent existence. He then finds himself on a beach, and he's strangling Asuka, his peer and the only person left that may be able to understand him. She responds to his violence with a mixed reaction of lackluster pity and disgust. Shinji is left unable to connect with anyone. He can't picture a future for himself, and he's unable to understand what it means to be a person in this context. His journey of self-discovery is painful and meaningless because both true connection and full-on independence are impossible. End of Evangelion was created in 1997, which the artist informs us was long enough after Japan's various troubles, being war, occupation, and a big recession, that they could then begin to think about who they were as a people. But the problem was that it seemed like there wasn't anything left. Shinji was pathetic, but that's how many Japanese people saw themselves. Here's where it gets really concerning. Superflat is an art theory that started in Japan, but it's also a warning for the rest of the world. Murakami writes,
Japan may be the future of the world, and now Japan is super flat. From social mores to art and culture, everything is super two-dimensional.
At the time of this video's creation in mid-2022, the world appears to be headed into a global recession. Meanwhile, more and more adults struggle with economic infantilization under these circumstances. Typical markers of adulthood such as homeownership, decent employment, and parenthood are out of reach. Due to the global nature of life today, the world shares more in common with Japan than it ever did before. What does it mean if people around the world are unable to develop as adults due to global economic circumstances? What will happen to our minds as our art, cartoons, and movies continue to flatten themselves to better represent our collective desires? Takashi Murakami's Superflat framework shows us that anime, while it offers a form of escapism unlike anything else, is a medium that reflects some of the most troubling aspects of reality.
私たち人間はもうとうの昔に哀れなる末路に突入しています。もうじき全滅します。